Hyundai's i30 Fastback delivers a bit of extra style to the family hatchback segment. We've not seen Gran Turismo class 5-door coupe styling in a Focus sector model before. This one delivers it with affordable elegance. Swept back 4- and 5-door coupe models have become fashionable over recent years in premium circles. It's about time, though, that this class of car became a bit more affordable. With this i30 Fastback model, Hyundai aims to deliver just that. Fastback is one of those names that seems to mean different things to different car makers. Ford use it to designate the coupe version of their Mustang. Mazda takes it to badge the saloon version of its compact Mazda 3. Hyundai, though, thinks it should evoke the spirit of classic Gran Turismo models of the 50s and 60s, in the way that in modern times designs like Audi's A5 Sportback and BMW's 4 Series Gran Coupe have tried to do. Cars like these are primarily aimed at business buyers bored by the thought of just another Audi A4 or BMW 3 Series and prepared to pay a premium for something looking a little more interesting. Hyundai thinks the same approach could work for buyers in the Focus Class family hatch segment. Their conventional i30 hatch is a worthy contender here, but if its looks are a touch too conservative for you, just £500 more gets you this swoopier Fastback body style, which comes with slightly sharper handling and all this strong, safe and sensible engineering that might have drawn you towards an i30 in the first place. This particular 5-door coupe derivative and the i30N hot hatch that was launched just before it in early 2018 both represent a more emotive side to i30 motoring. This Fastback body shape championing style, while the Korean brand's N division focuses on motorsport-tuned performance. If you have a healthier budget and find both approaches appealing, then you might be interested to know that the brand has developed an i30N Fastback model, allowing you to experience both at once. Here, though, our focus is going to be on the way that more ordinary i30 Fastback variants like this one bring the 5-door coupe concept within reach of more ordinary buyers looking for a touch of style in their next family hatch. Does it all add up? Time to find out. Fastback. The name sounds quite dynamic. And at first glance, the mechanical recipe does to some extent too. Compared to the ordinary i30 hatch, this variant rides 5mm lower, and there are what Hyundai calls performance-orientated shock absorbers, plus the suspension's 15% firmer and uses the kind of proper multi-link arrangement that's lacking in lower-order versions of many rivals. Okay, so the two mainstream engine options are the same modestly powered 1-litre and 1.4-litre TGDI petrol units you'll find in any ordinary i30, but if that's not sufficient, you can ask your dealer about the potent 2-litre turbo petrol unit used in the i30N hot hatch variant. That sort of performance seems a bit of a world away in the kind of more ordinary Fastback model we've chosen to focus on here. But the handling, sure enough, is a touch sharper if you're minded to throw this car into corners in a way a typical owner almost never would. Something no doubt also helped a little by this body shape's extra 115mm of length over the rear axle. The Fastback moniker, from Hyundai's perspective, designates more of a grand touring demeanour, so quite a lot of care has been taken to ensure that the stiffer suspension doesn't overly damage ride quality. It's a good effect. Yes, you pick up nastier tarmac tears a little more than you would in the more conventional model, but roll through the corners has been usefully reduced to compensate. Overall, for us, the ride and handling balance here is preferable to that of the standard i30 hatch. Try it and see if you feel the same. Also helping with the whole grand touring vibe is the fact that refinement is very impressive for a model at this price point, to the point where a blindfolded passenger might easily think they were travelling in something far more expensive. There's a reason for that, or more accurately, several reasons. For a start, the body is exceptionally rigid, thanks to 53% of it being fashioned from high-strength steel, an unusually high proportion for a relatively affordable family car. The advanced multi-link rear suspension further helps here, the design lacking the sharp edges and the clatter of moving parts that you typically find in rival setups. Add in things like anti-vibration engine mounts, hollow drive shafts, smoothly profiled door handles and double-layered door seals, and you begin to get the picture. Producing a car this quiet is all about attention to detail. We should talk about engines, which, as mentioned earlier, are all petrol-powered. Many will be drawn to the most affordable option we're trying here, a 3-cylinder, 1-litre, 120 PS unit carried over from the brand's smaller i20 Super Mini. It's an efficient and eager little power plant, quite sufficient for the modest needs of most potential i30 buyers. However, it's also one that in our experience has to be worked quite hard if you want to get moving with any kind of real speed. Doubtless the quoted performance stats for this variant, 62 miles an hour from rest in 11.5 seconds on the way to 117 miles an hour, are achievable, but you really have to thrash the engine a bit to replicate that claim. Hyundai claims that maximum pulling power is developed at just 1500 RPM, but for overtakes and sharp uphill inclines, we've frequently found ourselves needing to make full use of the 6500 RPM rev range, which can't be good for efficiency. It's for that reason we think you might prefer the rarer 1.4-litre TGDI option that's also offered to fastback buyers. This is a 4-cylinder engine with 140 PS, but it still manages a set of efficiency figures that are really quite close to those of the entry-level unit. And thanks to around 40% more pulling power, this power plant is much happier to oblige if you find yourself running a bit late or need to pull out from a junction toot sweet in dense, fast-flowing traffic. 62 miles an hour from rest takes 9.2 seconds en route to 129 miles an hour. That's if you go for the 6-speed manual gearbox that all i30s come fitted with as standard. On this pokier petrol model, there's also the option of Hyundai's smooth shifting 7-speed DCT dual-clutch auto transmission, one of those setups able to pre-select the next gear before you've even left the last one. Thanks to the DCT technology, opting for this self-shifter has no detrimental impact on efficiency too. Is there more to say? Well, only if you want to hear about the top hot hatch version, the i30 Fastback, a performance variant that will be of limited interest to typical buyers of this model line, but a car that's of great value to Hyundai, improving its engineering credentials to the rest of the European motor industry. This flagship derivative uses a 2-litre TGDI turbo engine, is fitted out with electronic dampers and an electronic diff, and is able to hit 62 miles an hour in around 6 seconds. But back to the car we're driving here. It delivers a lot of the feel of a bigger, more expensive model, but still remains one compact enough to nip around city streets with plenty of agility, thanks to light steering and a tight turning circle. That steering could offer up a bit more feel on faster roads, and the manual gearbox can be a bit notchy, but otherwise this fastback model is a likeable thing that's much easier to bond with than its more conventional stablemate. Is this the car the ordinary i30 could have been? Perhaps it doesn't matter. It's one you can choose without any significant downside. This, says Thomas Burkle, Hyundai's chief European designer, is the car nobody expected. And following the launch of the third generation i30 range in 2016, it did certainly seem that with hatch, Tourer Estate and i30N hot hatch derivatives all in place, the main bases had indeed been covered. Burkle and his team, though, felt that this now design-led brand needed to give its C-segment customers a more emotive, style-led i30 option. And this is it. The stylists created this fastback variant from a completely clean sheet of paper, apparently inspired by classic Gran Turismo models of the 50s and 60s in creating these flowing contours and this sloping silhouette. This fastback model sits 30mm lower than the conventional i30 hatch and is 115mm longer. The bonnet's lengthier, and at the rear end, this three-dimensional sculpted C-pillar is far more shapely. The wheels can be larger too. Avoid entry-level trim and the base 1-litre engine, and you get 18-inch rims, a size larger than the biggest available with the standard hatch. We've got 17 inches here. Arguably just as vital in giving this model its own distinct personality are the changes that the designers have made here at the front. The height of the usual cascading style front grille has been reduced in a bid to make it look wider, more clearly defined and better able to emphasise the sloping bonnet. The lower horizontal air intake below the grille has been extended right across the car above an angled lower front spoiler, while the LED daytime running lights that sit in these corner outlets gain boomerang style profiling. The rear windscreen is, says Hyundai, very much inspired by other similar GT-style designs in the premium segment. And sure enough, you can certainly see signs of Audi A5 Sportback in the way the refined shaping reinforces the car's tapered belt line. Most models get LED illumination for these slim tail lights, and prominent horizontal reflectors mark the corners of this lower bumper. As with many coupe-style hatchback models of this ilk, there's a frustration that a rear wiper's lacking for this swept-back rear screen. Now, your salesperson will tell you that the sleek aerodynamics make provision of such a thing unnecessary on the move, which is true, but that doesn't help you when you're starting off after a cloudburst or when you've left the car parked beneath falling leaves. As usual, of course, what's more important is the stuff you can't see, the body made up of copious amounts of high-strength steel that, impressively, Hyundai has managed to incorporate into this generation of i30 models without increasing their weight. Enough with that, let's take a seat at the wheel. If you happen to be familiar with any of the other i30 models in the range, you'll be instantly at home here because nothing's changed at all with this fastback variant. Premium touches and splashes of interesting design are somewhat lacking, which is disappointing after the expressive exterior styling. But it's hard to fault either the quality or the solid finishing of the fixtures and fittings. Most of the controls you regularly touch and feel are very pleasant to your fingertips. There's a smattering of chrome silver and piano black trimming, just to lift things a bit, and cheaper materials are better hidden than is the case with some rivals. The biggest cabin talking point is this standard 8-inch colour touchscreen. It's built into the fascia using the floating iPad stuck on top of the dashboard style of design integration that the premium German brands seem to like so much. There's no separate iDrive style control for this display, such as you'd get in, say, a rival Mazda 3 Fastback, but we like the ease of use of this setup with its clear, neat graphics and usefully large flanking shortcut buttons. This is your interface for controlling satellite navigation, the DAB audio setup, and a package of TomTom Live services that alert you to speed cameras, update you on the weather, and provide accurate information on traffic jams and roadworks. You can also connect in your handset using the Apple CarPlay and Android Auto phone projection smartphone mirroring systems. Getting comfortable is easy thanks to plenty of seat and wheel adjustment. Plus, electrically adjustable lumbar support is standard too. Other things we like include the way that on plusher models this central armrest can slide forwards so that it's perfectly positioned for your elbow, and the grippy 3-spoke leather-trimmed multifunction steering wheel is just the right thickness. Through this, you view two clearly presented dials that are separated either by a simple trip computer, as here, or the classier-looking 4.2-inch driver's supervision cluster display that's fitted to plusher models. Not so good, though, is rearward visibility, which is somewhat restricted by the tapering rear roofline. Hyundai is apparently aware of this, which is why rear parking sensors and a rear-view camera come as standard across the range. Cabin practicality is reasonable with bottle holders in the door pockets, an overhead compartment for your sunglasses, and this storage area under the ventilation controls, which contains USB aux-in and twin 12-volt sockets, plus a standard fit wireless phone charger mat. You also get a reasonably spacious glove box, a central storage bin, and a pair of cup holders by the handbrake. It's a conventional handbrake in this base model, but plusher premium models get an electronic handbrake, which has a narrow storage area just behind. Time to move to the back seat. Now, Hyundai's keen to talk about the sleek teardrop shaping of this car and the way the roof has been lowered by 25mm. But you think that could make getting into the back a little more difficult than it might normally be in a car of this class. And sure enough, you do have to duck slightly upon entry. But once inside, headroom isn't actually too bad unless you happen to be exceptionally tall. As with most other cars in the Focus Class family hatchback C segment, it's not really possible to sit 3 fully sized adults back here with any real degree of comfort. But if there are only 2 of you, then you'll find that there's reasonable space for legs, knees and shoulders. Now, if space should be needed for 3, then the relatively low height of this central transmission tunnel will help you out. Just above that, on plusher versions, you'll get air vents, but lower down the range on a variant like this one, you'll have to do without. As for practicalities, well, mat pockets in the back of the front seats provide somewhere to pack loose items, and there are small bins in both doors, plus Isofix child seat mounts on the 2 outer chairs. And you get twin cup holders in this central armrest. Finally, let's take a look in this Hyundai's boot. Despite the sloping roof, in straight stat terms, there's theoretically a little more space here than there would be in the ordinary hatch model, 450 litres as opposed to 395 litres. In practice, though, the space available isn't quite as usable because you've only got, about 18 inches or so of cargo loading height between the floor and the parcel shelf. There's quite a high loading lip to lump your baggage over to, and this cargo bay lacks the variable height boot floor you'd get on the conventional hatch. Valuables can be stored safely out of sight in these compartments beneath the boot floor, though only because Hyundai declines to include any sort of spare wheel. A tyre inflation kit is all that's provided. Let's take out the parcel shelf and take a closer look back here. Now, there are 4 tie-down hooks to help secure larger loads, and you also get a 12-volt socket and a couple of hooks in the upper side trims to stop your shopping bags from spilling all over the carpet. Longer items like skis can be pushed through this central ski hatch without disturbing a couple of rear-seated folk. And if you need more space, you can, of course, push the rear backrest down. It has a 60-40 split, and when the completely flat floor is revealed, there's up to 1,351 litres of carrying capacity available. That's 50 litres more than you get in the standard hatch. You do, though, get these useful corner compartments for valuables. Another place you could put valuable items out of sight is under the boot floor here, where you've got this compartmentalised area. There's a spare wheel just beneath that. Pricing for this Fastback i30 model sits in the £20,000 to £25,000 bracket, which at first glance seems to position it a little way above the standard hatch variant, which prices from around £17,000. That's only, though, because this sleeker body style ignores the ordinary version's lesser trim levels. Compare like with like, and you'll find that the premium to upgrade yourself from an i30 hatch into an i30 Fastback is only £500. There are 3 standard trim levels: SE Nav, Premium and Premium SE. To suit the mood of the moment, Hyundai has limited this Gran Turismo style variant to petrol power, the range kicking off with this 1-litre TGDI 120 PS 3-cylinder unit we're trying here. Find £750 more, and you can alternatively have a 1.4-litre TGDI 140 PS option, available with 7-speed DCT dual-clutch auto transmission for £1,000 more. You can also ask your dealer about the top high-performance track-tuned 2-litre TGDI i30N Fastback model that Hyundai has developed, but you're going to need a £30,000 budget for one of those. As for direct rivals to this car, well, there aren't really any in the Focus Class Family Hatch C segment, none with Gran Turismo styling pretensions anyway. All the other cars currently competing in this class are conventionally styled direct alternatives to an ordinary i30 hatch. Because Hyundai has kept the price premium over that standard model so relatively low, and because that standard model is very competitively priced, you'll almost certainly be able to get yourself an i30 Fastback for the same kind of money as that more ordinary Focus or Golf style model that you might have been previously considering. That's the idea anyway. It's a bit more of a stretch for Hyundai to claim that better specified versions of this i30 Fastback might suit budget-limited customers who ideally would have wanted a GT-style premium badge D-segment model like an Audi A5 Sportback or a BMW 4 Series Gran Coupe. Still, anything's possible. As we said earlier, a top mainstream model version of this Korean contender would cost you about £25,000, which would save you around £7,000 over the price of an entry-level version of the two German models that I've just mentioned. Enough on price and market comparisons. Let's assume that you've decided upon a mainstream i30 Fastback model and want to know exactly what will be included for your money. Well, a pretty reasonable amount as it happens. The Fastback range kicks off with SE nav trim, which gets you 17-inch two-tone 10-spoke alloy wheels, automatic headlamps, power folding door mirrors, front fog lights, a rear parking camera, rear parking sensors, and some significant electronic camera-driven safety features that we'll get to in a minute. Inside, there's cruise control with a speed limiter, powered driver's seat lumbar support, a ski hatch for the rear bench, and, as the trim level designation suggests, a properly connected package of media infotainment. You oversee this via an 8-inch centre dash screen, which gives you access to a DAB radio, Bluetooth phone connectivity, and full navigation, as well as a traffic messaging channel and Hyundai's Map Care and Live services that aim to keep you bang up to date with what's happening on the roads. The screen also lets you attach smart devices to the car using the Apple CarPlay or Android Auto systems, while a wireless phone charging pad in the front tray tops up your handset's battery without the need to attach any cables. We think this SE nav trim is pretty much all you really need in an i30 Fastback, but of course if budget permits it's possible to go further. The mid-range premium spec model adds in LED headlights, rain-sensing wipers, rear privacy glass, front parking sensors, and a smart key keyless entry and start system. Inside, the premium spec gives you part faux leather upholstery, heated powered front seats, dual-zone climate control, rear air vents, a front sliding armrest, a 4.2-inch LCD driver supervision instrument cluster display in the instrument binnacle, and an auto defog system that more quickly clears the windscreen on misty days. Plus there's solar glass, chrome-trimmed door handles, LED rear tail lights, and if you go for the 1.4-litre engine rather than the base 1-litre unit, you'll get an upgrade to 18-inch wheels too, again with two-tone 10-spoke finishing. At the top of the range, if you really must have almost everything on the options list fitted as standard, Premium SE spec gives you full leather upholstery, a heated steering wheel, and a powered panoramic sunroof. As for options, well, as usual with Hyundai, there aren't many, the brand believing that customers will prefer to move up a trim level rather than go box ticking. You'll probably find yourself paying extra for one of the metallic or pearl-style paint colours, though. There are only two solid standard shades, Polar White or this Engine Red. Let's finish with a perusal of the safety stuff on offer, an area in which the specification of this car certainly matches the highest standards in this class. While most other rivals only fit the choicest high-tech camera-driven features on their very priciest variants, Hyundai gives you pretty much everything you'll need right across the range, which means that an autonomous emergency braking system, including forward collision warning, comes as standard. The kind of setup that, as you drive, scans the road ahead, searching for potential collision hazards. If one is detected, you'll be warned. If you don't respond or aren't able to, the brakes will automatically be applied to decrease the severity of any resulting accident. Now, the other noteworthy standard fit camera-driven feature is the lane departure warning system with lane keep assist setup. It'll warn you if the car is unintentionally wandering over a road marking before gently steering your i30 back to where it ought to be. Other standard safety features are more familiar. There are twin front, side and curtain airbags, ISOFIX rear child seat fastenings and active front head restraints that prevent whiplash. In addition, as usual with a family hatch of this kind, there's ESC electronic stability control, tyre pressure monitoring and hill start assist control to stop the car from rolling backwards as you pull away on inclines. As you'd also now expect in this segment, the ABS anti-lock brakes are aided in panic stops by a brake assist feature, plus an emergency stop signal that flashes the hazard lights to warn following motorists. In addition, a standard driver attention alert system monitors for signs of fatigue and will prompt you to take a break during a journey. You wouldn't expect the running costs of this fastback variant to be very much different to those of the identically engined i30 hatch, and sure enough, that's the case. All models feature the brand's TGDI petrol power plants, which means that they get intelligent stop-and-go technology that cuts the engine when you don't need it, stuck in traffic or waiting at the lights. Interestingly, there's no option for the 1.6-litre CRDI diesel that you'd get offered in the normal i30 hatch range. Onto the figures. Now we'll start where a lot of customers will, with the base 120 PS 1-litre TGDI unit we've been trying here. This 3-cylinder variant manages 54.3 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and 120 grams per kilometre of CO2, compared with 56.5 miles to the gallon and 115 grams per kilometre of CO2 for the equivalent i30 hatch variant. The difference accounted for by this fastback derivative's extra 48 kilograms of weight. Either way, that's a fraction behind the class standard, something that also applies to the readings you get from the pokier 4-cylinder 140 PS 1.4 TGDI model. With the 1.4-litre variant, the figures suggest you'll get 49.6 miles to the gallon, which is only a fraction behind the comparable hatch version. The 134 grams per kilometre CO2 reading, though, is 10 grams per kilometre behind the equivalent 1.4 TGDI hatch derivative, which might affect your BRK payments. You can also have this 1.4-litre unit with a DCT auto gearbox, which will actually slightly improve this engine's running cost figures. Go for this self-shifter with this engine and the readings are 50.4 miles to the gallon and 129 grams per kilometre. The only other option is the i30N Fastback Performance derivative you can ask your dealer about. With that 2-litre TGDI hot hatch, you're looking at a combined cycle fuel consumption showing of just under 40 miles to the gallon and a CO2 reading of just under 170 grams per kilometre. What else might you need to know? Likely residual values? Well, they're a lot higher than they used to be on mainstream Hyundai models. Independent experts reckon that after 3 years and 30,000 miles, your i30 Fastback will still be worth up to 41% of what you originally paid for it, depending on the variant you select. An even stronger buying incentive is the 5-year unlimited mileage warranty that comes as standard. It's backed up by breakdown cover that lasts the same amount of time and free annual vehicle health checks over this duration. True, rival brand Kia claims to better this package by offering a similar 7-year deal, but there you're limited to 100,000 miles. As for servicing, well, your i30 will need a garage visit once a year or every 10,000 miles, whichever comes sooner. If you want to budget ahead for routine maintenance, there are various Hyundai Sense packages that offer fixed price servicing over 2, 3 or 5 year periods. You can pay for your plan monthly and add MOTs into the 3 or 5 year plans for an extra fee. The final financial consideration is insurance. You're looking at groupings of either 80, 9E or 10E for the 1 litre TGDI, depending on which of the 3 trim levels you select. For the 1.4 litre TGDI engine, the groupings are either 14E or 15E. Here's a brand that's changed enormously from the bland, sensible, forgettable car maker it used to be. Today, design has become the #1 reason why people choose a Hyundai, and models like the IONIQ, the Kona and the current generation Santa Fe are all delivering it. The fact that even core conservative models like the i30 feel the need to offer style-led variants like this one is arguably even more telling. But understandable, Hyundai has to differentiate itself from the other volume brands competing in the mid-market segment. And if that's to happen, then conventionality has to be blended with creativity, which is exactly what's being served up here. We could understand why you might be impressed but slightly underwhelmed by the conventional version of the 3rd generation i30 hatch. To some extent we were ourselves, but if that's the case, then we think you'll find that this Fastback variant delivers a much more appealing prospect. It packages up all the i30's undeniable virtues with quite a bit more flair, and there are plenty of them. We think the i30 to be one of the most refined cars in the class. The level of standard safety kit is unbettered in the sector too. Plus, this Hyundai also makes the grade when it comes to the important questions of practicality and media connectivity. True, it's not especially interesting to drive, but if drive dynamics are everything and budget permits, there's always the top i30N Fastback flagship model to consider. So, let's summarise. Will other volume brands follow Hyundai's lead here and produce stylised Gran Turismo-style versions of their conventional family hatches? We doubt it. The Korean company probably hopes they won't. That will, after all, leave this i30 Fastback as a unique option in its otherwise rather dull segment. It's sensibly stylish, and there has to be a market for that.